I had a request to record the session by one person who said that he wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here. So I've turned the recording on and I will have a electronic record of the meeting.
And ahead of time, Jack, I want to thank you for setting this up. I thought it was needed.
Well, when you mentioned it on the Coffee and Radio Net, it started me thinking about it, and I agree. Well, do we have a volunteer from either of the candidates to start?
I'll go first.
All right, go ahead, Terry.
All right. Well, my name is Terry Buzzard. I live here. My ham call is KAATNF, as you can see on the screen. I live in Virginia Beach. I've been living here for 35 years now. 30 years. I've been a ham operator for 35 years. I got stationed, I received my license in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii as a novice. And I got transferred back over to this side of the world, I call it. I was stationed on the USS Eisenhower. So we were in and out, and I tried to take my technician license and finally got that done. It took me a couple of times. But I finally got that done. And the reason I was so animate on getting my technician license is because that allowed me to talk on the repeaters. And then once I talked on the repeaters, I got hooked into ARES by one of our local ECs here. You guys may know him. He was here for a long time, Al Crawford. And Al was my mentor for many years. And then when Al decided to retire and move down to North Carolina, he turned the reins over to me. I was doing DEC 9 at the time. And that was before we switched over to the seven divisions. Let's see. Like I said, I'm pretty heavy in the MCOM side of the house because that's mostly what I've been working. I do enjoy an occasional getting up and doing event stations that may come about. I'm not a CW operator at what you would call a CW operator. I can still do 7 words a minute, but that's about as fast as I can go. And then let's see. So then I got involved with the MCOM side of the house here in Virginia Beach, and I've been here, like I said, 30 years, and I've set a good rapport with our section emergency management people, and also with the city's emergency management people. Currently, I hold the position of DEC 5, which encompasses your area as well, and so that covers everything from Westmoreland down south to Suffolk to the North Carolina line, and as far west as Williamsburg. And so so that's where I stand right now as far as my introduction.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Jack, do you want to take over? I show you as unmuted, but I don't hear anything.
I don't hear a thing. But we saw you on mute. While he's getting unmuted, let me ask Terry. Are you there, Terry?
Yes, I'm here.
This Gil, K4JST. I'm impressed with the amount of stuff that you've done as far as ARES and emergency communications. Have you done much else with things like Field Day and some of the other ARRL events that are part of the hobby?
Yeah, I participate in all of our field days when I'm in town. I used to travel a lot. but that was in a former job. But since I retired, we only travel in the RV around the state now. So we have a good time with that. And I was going to say, just let Jack know that when he comes back, I'll stop. But yeah, I participate in Field Day. I'm a member of the V-Bar Club, which I've been a member since I got here 30 years ago. It's a good club. And I must say that I was impressed with your club. I went up and looked at your webpage and stuff. The information on there is accurate and up to date. And that's one of my pet peeves is anytime you're looking at a website and you see stuff from 2018 and nobody's ever been on there before. I was impressed that you guys have a YL community as well. We used to have a good YL community, but it's kind of slimmed out a little bit, but we'd like to see it get back there again. So it was good to see some of those things that you had up on your webpage. It makes your community look real good. I really like that.
Well, thank you very much for the compliment on the webpage. Interestingly enough, it's an area that I've got on my list of things to work on improving. So we do, I think, a pretty good job of keeping things current, but there's some changes that will be coming to that website. So
Yeah.
thank you for the compliment on it.
And I'm sure that's going to be one of the topics tonight too, is that the state webpage has been in and out and back and forth. It's been a mess. It's been a mess. So that's one of the heartburns that both Jack and I have. And Jack has his solution and I have mine as well. But is he back with us now?
I don't see him back up there. I just
While you're
wanted to
waiting, may
point
I
out
ask
that-
a question of Terry?
Sure, go ahead.
Terry, would you tell the audience your experience with the USS Wisconsin Radio Club and your involvement for so many years with that club?
I liked about a year being a plank owner of that club. And we had Bus Etheridge. I don't know if you guys knew Bus. Bus was a mentor of mine as well. And so his vision was to take that Wisconsin and operate from the radio room down and below the decks, but instead, due to some things, some of the compartments never got de-gouged as far as some of the materials that's in there and the dust and things like that. But I was also a treasurer for many years, and now I'm just an operator that goes up there. They do 6 events every year. One being the commissioning of the Wisconsin, and then they'll do a December 7th event, and then the other one is a decommissioning of the Wisconsin. And then sometimes we just throw in an event or two, like museum ships on the air. So that's one of the regular schedules, but always have a good time. Haven't been too involved with them lately, but my time seemed to conflict every time we have an event station. Now I got something else going because I'm busy with my ARES group here in Virginia Beach. I'm waiting to see if Jack comes back. I guess I'll take other questions.
Okay,
Well-
well, let me pose a question for you.
Okay.
What issues do you see in the next year for the VA section, and how are you going to approach those issues?
My biggest issues, Jack, is that we need to get our leadership in order. The biggest problem is, and I hate to talk bad about Dr. Paulson because he's an SK now, and I don't want to just sit on it. But our leadership in the past has been very slow at reacting to anything that we wanted to do. The other part of that is the SEC that pretty much controls things as far as the ARES program, lives right here in the same city as me, but he's slow at reacting as well. So one of the biggest problems is the leadership. And then once the leadership gets in place, then we have to start rebuilding the relationships with our VDM partners, because they're our main VDM partner. We need to address getting all the other ham operators on board, whether they be Oxcom, MCOM, because the way I look at it, that if they say your emergency management people say, my ham radio operators are the best in Virginia. That's what I'd like to hear out of every one of them. But they only consider us ham operators. They don't care whether we're Oxcom, MCOM, as long as we're getting a job done for them. So one of those things is to combine and keep folks ready to go and be of service to those agencies that need our assistance. So once that relationship is built back, I think, and the third thing is getting volunteers. Volunteers are hard to get. We tried to start up races. We do races here in Virginia Beach, and the first couple of races, we were lucky to get 6 volunteers out there. So we're hoping to reestablish that. We got the Shamrock Marathon coming up in March. So that takes about 60 ham radio operators. And we open that up to as far as Richmond, and we get people in from Richmond to come down and do a race at dark 30 in the morning, that they come down and enjoy it. Some people have folks that are running in the race, so they're down here and they'll call us up and say, hey, can I do something while the spouse is running in the race? So we always get them in there and let them do that. But once that gets established, then it's just going to be a matter of getting it done and getting the leadership in place. And it didn't take overnight to break it, so it's not going to take overnight to fix it either. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think it's workable. I think it's workable. I see Jack's back now, so.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, Jack, what we've done is we've asked Terry a couple questions, and after your introduction, I will re-ask my question. And I think Ed, you asked a question, and I think Gil also asked a question. So we'll pose those questions to you also. So go ahead, Jack.
Okay. Just very briefly, I'm Jack Smith, Kilo Echo 4 Lima Whiskey Tango. I'm active in public service and have been, well, since 1980, really. Served on several disasters and large events since 1983, with the first one being the floods in Bessemer, Alabama, where I volunteered with the Red Cross. When I was in Germany in the early 80s, is when I first got interested in amateur radio. Of course, moving around all the time, it was kind of difficult to do that. It wasn't until 1993 that I got licensed. But I'd always been dabbling, I guess you'd say, with it, some using the Mars stations, assisting with events when possible. Volunteered with the Red Cross the whole time I was in the military, up until about 2008, when the Red Cross did that big change on everything, and they said you had to go take all your training all over again because they changed to an electronic system, and they wouldn't take the paper-based stuff and move over, which that's kind of, they lost a lot of volunteers then. But that was also at the same time that they were restructuring after Hurricane Katrina. Anyway, as I said, I've served on virtually every major hurricane, flood, wildfire in the Western Hemisphere since 1980. Whether it be in a communication status or overall planning status, working with volunteer partners, frequently with agencies, emergency management agencies, government agencies, of course, the Red Cross, the Baptist Mission Group, Methodist groups, and up until here recently, I was in North Carolina helping operate the COVID vaccine clinics. And about 2 months, we vaccinated almost 500,000 persons during that time. So I was coordinating a lot with all of our different agencies, the National Guard, the military, the federal military, state and federal partners. So a lot of experience in that, developing operations plans, developing Homeland Security exercise and evaluation plans. And as some of you may know, I developed the only SET that we've had in Virginia since 2016. It was kind of a last minute deal, but that's out there for anyone to look at if they want to. And also the, right now, and this is there for Terry to use if he wins, by the way, the MCOM Wiki, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, which is a site that is designed so that every club, organization related to emergency communications, and of course, as Part 97.1A says, the primary purpose of amateur radio is to support emergency communications. And everything else we do feeds into that, whether it be the DXing, the contesting, the CW operators, all those are skill builders that go into that. So whether or not you're using them directly or not as in emergency communications, you're building skills that you can share with others. So we all have a part to play in that. But going back to my background, I'm not going to read you my whole resume because it's out there on LinkedIn if you want to, and there's also my amateur radio resume, if you will, on qrz.com. But the big thing is that I work all the time to work with other organizations to get the word out and to market us as a service. When it comes to trying to preserve our spectrum, preserve our image in the community, or going to, say, a homeowners association and trying to get an exception so that we can put an antenna up, the first thing they're going to ask is, what's in it for me? And right now, we actually have a tool that yesterday, the Virginia State Legislature passed a joint resolution, which you can find on the MCOM Wiki, where they recognized and commended amateur radio for our services. So to me, that's the big thing, is we have to market ourselves, get out there, get with each other. We've lost the ability to talk with each other. And that's a difficult thing to say as a communications organization, that we can't talk to each other. We can't share information in a way that is useful and helpful. Everything is disjointed, isolated, separated, and we've got to get back to in the aviation world, there's aviate, navigate, and communicate. Well, for us, we should be communicating, coordinating, and collaborating. We have to work together. We have to share information, and we have to work together as a team instead of, let's see, I looked it up the other day, 16,885 ARRL members in Virginia. So we've got to get away from 16,885 isolated islands and work together as a team to make us a more viable organization.
Okay, well, thank you, Jack. Gil, do you want to pose your question that you gave to Terry?
See if I can unmute myself. Yeah, again, I'm impressed with your emergency communication background, but the section manager generally has to deal with a lot of different things, everything from contest clubs to the latest Ham Fest that's been canceled. Have you been participating in things like Field Day or some of the other events that are part of the heritage of Ham?
Yes, I try to participate in Field Day every year, wherever I'm at. And I also, I tried to get into the Parks on the Air bug, oddly enough, during the wildfires in California. I bought a Jago G90, and I had one of the Virginia hams 3D print me some components so I could take with me. But the weather was so horrible and I was driving around so much, I think I got on the air maybe 10 or 15 times with that. So I wasn't very successful in that regard, but I certainly try. And as with Terry, I have an RV and I take that thing out all the time. And while I was doing the COVID vaccine clinics in North Carolina, I had a station set up down there. And, so after a long day at work, I mean, it was fun to just get on HF and piddle. I mean, to be honest, I mean, just to rag chew. It was a great way to contact people and just kind of take some stress off of everything. But the other thing is I try to, when I'm out, I try to look at what the other organizations are doing wherever I'm working at, and try to learn from their best practices. And for example, in California, a lot of the amateur radio groups out there are working very strongly with the animal rescue organizations and providing them communications. So they do cross training, so they don't want a one-trick pony. So the communicator is also trained to work with animal rescue, and they go out with them and provide those communications in the areas where the communications infrastructure has been destroyed or as an adjunct to everyone.
Okay. I know you asked specifically about Mr. Buzzard's participation with the USS Wisconsin. Do you have anything else that you asked him also?
Let me get my video because I want to. All right. First of all, I'm going to fact check this question more than anything else, because I think, first of all, from both candidates. So if you want more of a fact checking response from me as the former assistant section manager, I'll be glad to do that. But I've got some questions out here that have more to do with my role. Williamsburg Area Amateur Radio Club had more press from me. So you all know my name. And I've been on your group's IO. So that's why I want to set the record straight here. And the question would be first, and I'm not going to hold back from Mr. Smith on this question. He said, and he made the point that he's the only one who developed a set drill in the state of Virginia over the past 5 years or 6 years. I won't deny that, but it was the timing of it. Many of you have read the newsletter, and I'll have this question. Many of you read the newsletter, saw my requests for assistance in many different roles in the state. So my question is, why was the set drill so late, and why didn't Mr. Smith come forward earlier when he could have actually run that drill as early as last March or April if he made his desire so known? The other question is, why is his district without a DEC when he's been involved with writing the plan that called for it? So there we go.
You sorted out the AGM.
Good.
Jews are down $100 this year.
Hey, Dennis, could you mute?
Well, Ed, that's a very good question, and I'll answer that. So from June of last year until May of this year, or sorry, not this year, of course. I keep forgetting that we're in 2022. Until May of 2022 or 2021, I was in the wildland fires in California. And in fact, you and I spoke by satellite phone several times. And I told you then that I would have been more than happy to help if I had the time. But as I was busy, actually working, I wasn't able to. When I got home from, then right after that, I went into North Carolina to run the COVID vaccine clinics, where I was then able to be a little bit more involved. The SET was advertised by the section emergency coordinator on the day of the national SET. And in that, I'll be happy if anyone wants to fact check this, I will be more than happy to let you do it right now. You can go to ARRLVA.com and see on there the day that the section emergency coordinator advertised that we were going to participate in the SET. He also said for people to contact him regarding that, and several people did, and he never answered. Now, having said that, I understand that there were some problems that were beyond his control. So I'm okay with that. But that goes to another point that I'll address here separately, which is that none of us can stand alone. If you're an assistant section manager, an assistant section emergency coordinator, an assistant DEC, whatever, that information needs to be shared with your, you need to share it back and forth, is what I'm saying. The section manager, the SEC, et cetera, they need to have that assistant be in the loop and have access to that information so that if something were to happen, let's just say Terry gets elected, okay? Or I get elected, or whoever, doesn't really make any difference. And we step out in the yard tomorrow during an ice storm and a tree falls on us and kills us. Somebody has to be able to pick up and take over without interruption. So putting something out and not responding is not acceptable. Putting something out and not having a plan to follow it up with is not acceptable. So I took an existing plan that I had written for another type of exercise, and I quickly adapted that and made that available to the group. So, and I tried to get it to the SEC, and he eventually saw it and signed off on it, and it went out. Again, I understand that he had some personal things going on, so we worked to get it out, and that's the way it should be. We should work to get stuff done regardless of what happens. If Terry gets elected and he picks up the phone and asks me for help, and I'm not traveling or staying in the middle of a wildland fire, I will help him.
May I add something?
Thank you. The question that I asked Terry is what issues do you see in the next year for the Virginia section, and what are your plans to address those issues? Jack, do you have a response to that question?
Oh, I thought you were asking Terry. I'm sorry.
No, I asked him that while you were fixing your.
Okay.
Responded to that question.
I misunderstood you. So the big thing is, of course, is we've got to get each other communicating again. The first problem we have is if you go through the list, and Ed actually kind of hit on that, and if you go through the list of DECs, ECs, et cetera, there are a lot of them that aren't. And what I mean is, I'm going to give you Orange County as an example. Orange County on the ARRLVA.com site lists a gentleman as the EC. He resigned in writing 2 years ago, but is still listed. The Greene County EC is listed as vacant. It is not. I, together with the current SEC, recruited a gentleman who is filling that spot. So the first thing we have to do is get a handle on that, find out who's really out there, who's not out there, and see what their assignments are. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of people out there that are, I'm not going to say they're not doing a good job or they're doing a bad job. I don't know what they were assigned. Terry doesn't know what they were assigned. None of us knows what they signed on to do. So if you were, took on a role as assistant section manager, you are probably assigned a specific lane to work on. We don't know who that is. We don't know what that is. The data does not exist. So we have to see if A, those people still exist. I know some do not. Some have moved out of state. And B, if they want to continue serving in whatever role they were serving in. And C, we have to find out what that role was. We don't know. Yeah. And that goes back to we have no archive of data so that we know what people were doing. So we got to get a handle on that before we can do anything else. And then after that, we start getting those people and identify what the vacancies are and what our priorities are and start getting those worked on.
May I comment on that? Jack, you're muted.
Oh, were you asking me, Terry? Certainly.
No, I was asking the moderator,
Yeah.
Jack one.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was in the program. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was called ARES Connect, which was an ARRL incentive to group states together to have one national database, which was a good database if everybody would have used it to its capabilities. It was very lengthy in reporting capabilities. So people said, I'm not going to report because this is too long. If I have to make, the comment I got one time was, if I have to make more than 3 clicks, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to do it then because there's not a 3-click session in here. But that was a good program. It listed everybody. And the ARRL figured out that it was costing them a lot of money to keep this up nationwide because every state had an ARES Connect website. And I administered that state along with Jim Merritt down in Powhatan. And he and I took over this website because the leadership that we had thought that the website or the ARES Connect would run itself. And it took us almost 3 months to get things going on that. And once we got a handle on it, of course, and we got statewide events that go in and people were putting in their local events and it was a good website, then the ARRL decided to pull it. Well, they gave us 6 months. It's not, somebody said to me the other day, well, why do they just pull it right out, out from under us? And who knows why they pulled it, but they gave us a 6-month thing. In January, they said, in June, we're shutting you down. So with that process in mind, I went ahead and backed up all the data that was on as much as I could on that website. And it's sitting available for whenever we get a good website wiki in there. But again, that data is so that everybody doesn't have to go back out and redo the information like we have done in the past. And it wasn't a single part website where somebody says, take my website and go home. So as long as if Jack becomes section manager and his SEC wants that database, it's going to be right on his front doorstep. And like I said, I administered it right up to the end. So I know that a lot of times that people would sign in, and it wasn't just for ARES folks, it was for everybody, so that they could come and do their, they could come up to their website and look at their profile and say, okay, I need to change my profile. It had a place in there where it listed so that you could do functions of the, if you had a field organization program that you were in. So a lot of that information that I put in the spreadsheet, I divided everybody out into 7 districts. And then every district that was under that VDM region is in my notebook that says, you know, who's participated, who signed up. I got people that says, hey, I don't want to play this game anymore. So I just won't even sign up, because you had to go in and register your city or your club and say, hey, we want to be participants in this big thing. So that database is available to whoever needs it at the time. And so I just wanted to say that that was a good website, and we were communicating around the state, which is the first time that we've been able to do that for a while. And then when they pulled it, they had no backup. ARRL had no backup, and everybody else went down to their own private databases again, I'm sure. And then we started working on the ARRLVA.com, and we've been working some issues with that. But it's like any other database. If the information there is wrong, it's, you know, it's inaccurate. And so I took the time to call people phone call by phone call and ask them if they still wanted to be in that database. And so that's where I got most of my information from. And then I went up to the field organization for ARRL, and there's a site up there, field organization, under the public safety, where you can look and put in Virginia, and you can tell whoever's got whatever in there. That database really needs to be cleaned up, because it's got a lot of people in there that some are SKs now and some nowhere to be found. So that's one of my initiatives too, is to get that database cleaned up, because then it takes either the section manager or the SEC to get in there and say, hey, this person's not here anymore. So it takes some work, and it won't be done by itself. Thank you.
Muted, Jack.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Well, I've got another question then for both of you. Where do you see the ARRL in a year?
Can I answer first?
Sure.
I think the ARRL is a great organization. There's a lot of information on their website. They help a lot of hams get going. The problem that I see is that once the ham gets up there and signed up, unless the ham is interested in doing something, he's not going to ever go back to that webpage again. I go up there on a regular basis, look at the public service stuff, and look at different items that are in there. I'd like to see the special events page. I like to see the QSO pages and what events are happening in Virginia. So it gives us a lot of information, but it's the program, the ARRL ARES program, it needs some work, and they just now have signed on a new, what they would call an emergency coordinator in their division. But you know, it's going to take him a while to ramp up to cover all the states and its territories. because everybody does things differently. We train for hurricanes on this side. They train for fires on the other side. And so I think it's a good organization. They're losing membership pretty quickly. But I'm one of those guys that hang in till I don't drop off the ship until the last minute when I got at least a rope near the shore. And so that's one of my things, is to get ARRL well represented, because like I had told people before, that people only look at us as ham operators, whether they're MCOM, OXCOM, ARRL, ARES. If your section manager says, hey, my ham radio guys are doing a great job for me, that's all I want. That's all I want. I don't care whether they're OXCOM, we do the same training. I don't care if they're MCOM, we do the same training. It's a matter of getting all these organizations and the head of those organizations together and saying, hey, let's work together and make this state the best state that you can be. I've looked at some other states that are in our in the Roanoke division and talked to their section managers presently, and they're all having the same trouble. They're all having troubles getting volunteers. COVID-19 stuff took a big bite out of us, and it's hard for people to get back and start feeling safe going out and doing things anymore. Like I said, we have done some races and stuff like that, but we've had trouble getting volunteers. So we're hoping that that's going to kick up. And now with this new variant, who knows what's going to happen.
Thank you, Terry. Jack, you want to respond?
Well, Terry actually hit the nail on the head with some of that. And the one thing is I do see the ARRL as improving. They do realize that they have some problems. And the one example of how they're improving is the new training videos that they have, which I think are really going to be able to help get people more involved. The issue with volunteerism is not unique to us. I mean, it really isn't. There's been a lot of articles about volunteerism hurting everywhere. One of the amateurs I'm working with in helping to set up their wiki page, he was telling me that he's in the Lions Club, and the Lions Club where he's at, when he joined just 10 years ago, had about 70 members in it. And today it has about 20, and the youngest is over 50. And volunteerism is really dropping off. And part of the problem with that, I see we're having as well. And that is, it's a chicken and the egg thing. If we don't give people something to do, they won't participate. If we don't have those people participating, then our served agencies are not going to give us something to do. And it's the same thing with the training. If we don't show that the training is needed to support something, then people don't want to take the training. So it's really complicated in how to work that. And that's why you're seeing volunteer fire departments having serious problems, where some of them that it's kind of crazy in a way, their success is hurting them. And what I mean by that is they have really good fire education programs in their community, so they don't have a lot of fires. So they don't have a lot of fires, so their firefighters don't get involved and go out and do things, and they feel like all they're doing is waxing the fire truck. So you've got to get that interest going where people see that what they're doing is valuable. And the ARRL is working on that. And I think the ARES program is really working on that. Ed made a comment about the people in the Orange County and all that having a Region 3 MCOM. Yes, they do. And they have nothing to do with the ARRL in doing that. I know every one of them. And they're the ones who resigned from ARES. And that goes back to they didn't have something to do. They weren't being communicated with. I don't want to give away too much, but one of the people that we probably all work with a lot is working on an exercise right now where some of the different emergency management organizations and their amateur radio counterparts throughout the state are conducting routine exercises, just practicing so that they can show a skill set. And once you get those amateur radio operators and those emergency management agencies working together, and they have that cohesion where they can show how they can work together, then those emergency managers, and I'm just going to say in Alpha County, talks to their neighbor over in Bravo County and says, hey, we just conducted an exercise with them where they were able to pass traffic from the southwest toe of Virginia all the way up to the capital region. And so you've got to be able to show something, and and it works both ways. So that emergency manager then has to say, hey, let's conduct these exercises more often, and you get more people involved. You get more emergency managers involved. You get more volunteer agencies like the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and all these others to see the value in it, and you get everybody together. And that's the ARRL was working on that with their previous emergency communications director, but he had to resign for personal reasons. So we went from having a director who was making that outreach to not having one, and now we're right back in, Terry hit on that. So this poor guy, he's getting up there and he's having to learn from scratch. And, I do see that progress is being made, but we're still doing that single point of failure thing. And it's hurting us. There doesn't need to be one person up there doing that. There does not need to be one amateur radio operator up there as emergency communications director. There needs to be at least 2 or 3, because it's a huge country, a lot of differences in it, and God forbid something happened, then we're right back at where we're, right back at square one.
I just want to explain a little bit. And when I fill out my leadership team, Jack pointed that out earlier, is that I'm going to have a second in command, an ASM, who should be able to take over this section should some type of life expectancy thing happen, which it does to all of us at some point. And if I can't run the section, at least he'll be able to run the section for the time being until my life crisis gets going and away. In the same way that, and when I get that SEC that I feel comfortable with, I'm going to find 2 SECs so that one will be his assistant or her assistant. I don't want to make that strictly a male job, because I've seen some very good YLs take over some leadership positions and do very good at them. But that's what it takes, is you got to have a second somewhere, a backup, so that when that life thing hits you, then you got to be ready to take it on, instead of, like our previous leadership. They just dropped the ball on us.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one for both.
Go ahead.
As Williamsburg knows, I spent most of my 2 years getting to know clubs and putting a lot of effort into championing the work that they do. So I asked both candidates, you've given us strong MCOM type of things. What are you going to do to champion the cause of clubs and to let people around the state to know all the good works that these clubs are doing?
I myself am going to be looking at a recognition program for the affiliated clubs that are out here, and all the, I don't know if you were up here when I talked to Jack earlier and told him that I went up to their website and looked at it, and it's a great website. It's got lots of information, and the information is up to date. And that's the other thing that our affiliated clubs need to do, is go in And, you got to at least get in that webpage once a month, I would hope, and get your information up to date. And so that recognition, the DXers, we have contesters that are on both sides of the state that compete with each other. Why can't we just have a little, get the bragging rights to do something for other things? There's not much more you can give a DXCC guy other than the certificate that he would get up from the ARRL, things like that. But, the above and beyond guys, that's the kind of guys you like to recognize, and recognize the clubs that are doing good jobs. They're training, they're have a good YL program like the guys in Williamsburg here, and they got youth training and a youth section in there. So I don't, I would I would hope that everyone would model off of that program right there. It's because it's such a nice program. I really enjoyed reading through some of the different things, but that's what I would do, is just more recognition to those clubs and to folks that do things. Like in my first session that I had, I asked everybody who belonged to a VEC class or have ever taught a ham radio class. And, I got lots of hands raised. Well, those are the beginning of our youth. There's the beginning of getting new operators in the state. And it's just a matter of not just license them, but leading them to where they want to go. So that's what that state web database should be, is to get those people to go up to that. Instead of going to ARRL.com, they can go up to .org, and they can go up to the state website and see what's going around in the state and see how they can help out and do things. Like Jack says, if you don't give them something to do, they'll just lay dormant.
Thank you, Terry. Jack, do you have a response to that question?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the site that I've already got up and running, people can toot their own horn now, and I mean that in a nice way. In fact, it takes about 10 minutes, 20 minutes if you haven't done one before, to populate your county. In fact, I've already populated Williamsburg and really marketed your guys. So the idea there is that, let's just say that someone goes in there and clicks on Williamsburg. They'll see the neighboring counties. So you can see what's going on in Williamsburg, and you can see what the neighboring groups are. So you can actually just then click on the neighboring group and see what they're doing. So you can participate in their stuff too. You can share those best practices. You can share what those events are. You can collaborate and coordinate, so that way, let's just say that you're having an event where you need someone to come out and, well, you need enough people to make it worth the effort. Let's just, I'm going to use building an NVIS antenna, and you're going to do a club build. Well, you don't want 2 people to show up. You want to have, 8 or 10 people show up, so it's worth the effort. And that way you can advertise that with each other's groups, because you can find each other's information quickly. And then you can post those best practices. So you can put your plan, so I saw that you do a lot of scratch building with different groups, members of the club. You can post what that kit is, what parts are needed, what day you're going to meet at, what to bring, who brings the casserole, that kind of thing. And you can coordinate all that information in one site and get that out there. And then once you have that finished product and you've done that, then you can share that, how we did it and how to improve next time. And that has to be done, because again, it's the only club that I even see anything from in my area is Charlottesville Albemarle, which they're a great group and they do a lot of good stuff, but they're not, and no, nothing on them. It's just the way that our system is set up right now. they're not sharing what they're doing on a certain day, except with a handful of people who just happen to be members of both clubs. But you always want to invite people over to your group. Well, who knows? They might want to join. And then, yeah, you might want to improve membership. But the other thing is you can learn from each other, and you can also you can use that as a marketing tool. You know, see how we're working with the other groups all around us to come together and do great things.
Thank you. Volunteering was brought up as a problem to be solved. And I know that COVID-19 has really impacted the CERT program in the Williamsburg area. And I'm wondering what do you want to do in the section to improve the volunteer?
Well, and I'm gonna maybe have to cut out here in a minute because I was supposed to be doing a net at 8 o'clock, but it sounds like somebody's picking it up for me. Volunteers, like I said, is hard to come by, but at some point there has to be commitment in the volunteer. I committed 30 years ago to do ARES, and we've had some good runs and some bad runs, and I'm still here doing the same thing. And if Jack makes section manager, I'll still be doing the same thing, just under a different leader. And you won't see me go away. So my commitment is there. Our volunteers have to do the same thing. I have volunteers that go and do different things. I work for, actually I got about 3 volunteer organizations that I commit to. We commit to feeding the homeless. We commit to our local police department to do some things for the police operations division. We volunteer with our church to do different things. And it's every one of those groups, hard to get the volunteers, but you have to have something out there that they want to, that makes them want to volunteer and commit to it. No volunteers and this section will die just as sure as day. And we're kind of at that critical point right now. So I'm like Jack, I want to get it going again and get it moving. That's my commitment to the ARES program and to the state of Virginia, is that we got to see something happening. Otherwise people will just be going away, joining some other group.
Thank you, Terry. Jack, go ahead.
Well, that's the, like I said before, you've got to give them something to do or they won't come. So the first thing you've got to do is, of course, you've got to get your volunteers that you have now. The next, involved and give them something to do. The other thing is, the ARRL has worked with the National Volunteering Organizations Active in Disasters to give us something to do, yeah, which is to support those groups. But the other thing is that how many of us have gone and talked to those groups and shown them what we do? I mean, there are a few, and vice versa. How many times have we asked them to come and tell their story? Yeah, and then how do we take that and work with them to build these cooperative training exercises where we go out and provide them the communications for the shelter locations that they may be setting up. For the Salvation Army, they typically run the canteens. The Mennonites also do a lot of field feeding operations. All these different groups, they have communications needs during events. And if we get with them and show them what we're doing, they will be interested in learning how to be part of our organization as well. I work a lot with the different groups when I go out on my days off, whenever I'm on a disaster, and I try to spend some time with them and talk to them, tell our story. And that's how we get other people involved, is we've got to tell our story to them and let them tell their story to us. It works. It's a two-way street. We've got to be able to do that. And by doing that, they might mention, hey, my neighbor Bob, he's very active in whatever. Maybe he might be interested in that. And you actually do get a snowball effect. And going back to the Lions Club with the gentleman, I think it's over in Monterey, the Lions Club in California, of course, they do a lot of the optical stuff where they do the glasses and the eye exams and all. But out in California, what they've been doing is a lot of wildfire recovery, where what they do is they go out and assess a home. You have in these rural areas, you have a lot of homes just like here where I'm at on a well, and they go out and evaluate that, see what's needed to get that well back in service, and then they go out and do that. But to do that, they have no communications. So they have to work with the amateur radio groups to have communications out in the field. And because of that, some of those Lions Club members have joined in with the ARES groups and started trying to learn more about everything and get licensed, et cetera. So you get that back and forth, and of course, some of the amateurs were interested in what they're doing and seeing what their mission is. So that's how you do that. You've got to, but it goes back to what both of us have said. You've got to give them something to do, and you've got to do it. And then you've got to find people who want you to work with them to get that dynamic going. And it's tough. You've got to get people who want to do that.
Thank you, Terry. Are there any other questions? I know we've promised about an hour, so do we have any other questions?
I just want to thank you, Jack, for doing this, and both candidates. And anyway, we're going to try, the Williamsburg Club's going to try to get some other people, some other ARRL members in to see the recording of this thing. Thank you so much, and I need to leave.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank you, Terry, and you, Jack, for coming tonight. And I'm going to make this recording available to our Williamsburg Club members and anyone else that would like to see it. So again, I want to thank you all for coming, and I'll say 73 to all of you.
Hey, Jack, can I add one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to say that, in the job description for a section manager, it says the section manager is accountable for carrying out the duties of his office in accordance with the ARRL policies established by the board of directors and shall act in the best interest of amateur radio. So, our basic responsibilities are recruit, appoint, and supervise section level staff to administer the field organization, which covers all of those guys. So, like I said, hold us accountable, and that's all I can do.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for coming, and I'm going to end this recording.